Right, so let's take a look at how to use some of these built-in functions and also some these arithmetic operators in SQL. So what I'm going to do is I already have my SQL server running, so I'm just going to go ahead and connect Workbench to it. Again, user is root, password is root. Okay. Now I'm going to use the same database that was used in previous videos, and that will be the week 4 DB. Okay. So that means before we can do anything, as I've been uh, saying to you in the other videos, we need to run the use statement so we can tell MySQL that we want to use this database. So let's go ahead and run that. Okay. So after running it, okay, check mark. Okay, so all is good. Alright, so I can actually delete that because I'm not gonna need it. Okay. Alright, so let's see. So if we say here, oops, let's start with describe vehicles. Just so we can see the structure. And again, this is how the vehicles table looks like. The fields and their corresponding data types and the rest of the settings. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a simple select asterisk from vehicles, and I'm gonna run that, just that line, control enter. Alright, so this is what I'm getting. Okay. So this is the result of select asterisk from vehicles. So let's take a look at that in a Mac. Okay, so in the Mac, so I have MySQL running. Okay, I have okay, I also have MAMP here. So let me just go ahead and make this bigger and connect Workbench to it. Password is root. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in so we can see better. Okay, I think that's good enough. So in the same procedure, I'm gonna run use week 4 DB, and I'm going to type describe vehicles, and what I'm gonna do is just run both of these. So I can go query, execute all. Okay, there you go. So with the use statement, I've just told MySQL that I want to use the week 4 DB database, and the describe allows me to see the structure of the vehicles table. And just quickly, I'm going to add select asterisk from vehicles and go ahead and run that particular line. Okay, so there you go. So as soon as you click that Thunderbolt with the iBar, or you can go to query, execute current statement to just to run just that line, you should get your result showing up here. Okay. All right, so we pretty much got the same result. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create another SQL tab. Okay, and I'm just going to adjust the zoom level. So let's play with something like this. Let's say we want to, let's take a look at the select statement again. And all right, so let's say we want to see the year, the make, the model, and price. Okay, so let's put that in. Select v year, comma v make, comma v model, comma v price from vehicles. Okay, and just to give it some sorting order, we're gonna put order by v year, and just gonna be year. And let's run this statement. Okay, so since this is a Mac, I'm gonna go and press Command Return. So if you're using Windows, that'll be Control Enter. All right, so rightfully so, we see the year, the make, the model, and the price. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add here V price times, let's say, 0.10. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I've added a column in my select clause, and this column will display the result of multiplying the price, okay, because in SQL the multiplication operator is the asterisk. So this will display the result of multiplying the price by 10%, or practically 0.1 or 0.10. All right, so let's see what's going to happen. All right, just run that statement. Okay, so if you look closely at this result, okay, this will indeed show you 10% of the price. Okay. Now, also notice that the column is called V price asterisk 0.1 or 0.10. Okay. So I can actually name that, and I can put here V price times 10 as, say, 10 PCT. Okay, so 10%. So I can put that, and that's what's called an alias, or like a nickname. I'm going to go ahead and run that. Command return or Control Enter for Windows users. And there we go. So we got the year, the make, the model, the price, and this column is now called 10 PCT. Okay, so what I want to do, and actually that's what aliases do. Okay, now this time, okay, let's make some modifications to that. Now what I want to do is I want to show how much that vehicle will be. So let's say this V price is like the dealer price or some hidden price. This is not the price that's shown to the customer. And then what we want to show in another column is how much that, let's say like a sticker price or MSRP, how much that vehicle will be when it's sold to the customer. So let's say we're going to put a 10% markup on the price of the vehicle. All right, so for example, that will be V price. Okay, we take the price of the vehicle, but we're gonna add V price. We're gonna add 10% of the price. Okay, so we're taking whatever the price of the vehicle. So let's say it's $40,000, right? And we're gonna add 10% of the 40,000. So naturally, you would type V price times, and just like we did earlier, 0.10 or 0.1. Okay. Now, and then if you want to, you can put a nickname there. So as customer price. Okay. So now we run that. You're gonna get something like this. Okay. So you're gonna see. You're gonna have a fifth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's right. You're gonna see a fifth column called cust price, which is the alias that we put here, and you're going to see that cust price showing you or showing us the price of the vehicle plus 10% of that price. In other words, we're putting a 10% markup on top of the price of the vehicle. Now, if you're wondering, wait a minute, Joel, you might say, I'm seeing here 38,489 on that 34,990 vehicle. Okay, so what's happening here is we have two operations, multiplication and addition. Okay, and just like in grade school years, this will follow the PEMDAS, order of operations, which means that the computer, or in this case MySQL, will perform the multiplication first. We'll multiply the price by 0.1 or by 0.10, and then it's going to add whatever the result of this, whatever the product of price times 0.1, it's going to add it afterwards to the V price, so the price. So for every vehicle, that's what's going to happen. It's going to take the current price. Okay, it's going to take the current price multiplied by 0.1, and the product of that is then added to whatever the price of the vehicle is. And the result of the whole thing, the sum essentially, becomes the value that's going to end up in the cust price column. Okay, and again, the cost price, where did I get that? Well, I just decided to name the column like so. Um, this is not an actual field that's in the table. This is what's called an alias or a nickname. Okay, so in fact, I can use that cost price over here and put order by cost price, and I can put here DESC. So for example, I want it descending. So let's see what's going to happen. Command return. Okay, so there we go. All right, so I'm seeing the vehicles listed by customer price, but in descending fashion. So in other words, from the most expensive down to the cheapest vehicle. Okay. All right, so let's try that too in a Windows machine. All right. So let me create another query tab here. So just to prove that it's practically the same thing. All right, so for example, I'm going to say select asterisk from, not select asterisk, select v year, comma v make, comma v model, v price, and we're going to say v price times, plus v price times 0.1 as cost price from vehicles. And we can actually play with the where clause, so we can say where v year, or rather, let's do something like this, where cost price less than 100,000. Okay. Order by v year descending. Okay, so this should give us, well, let's find out. So since I'm back in Windows, I'm going to press Control Enter. Okay, so I got an error, unknown column cost price in where clause. Okay, so let's find out what's going on here. Okay, so this is what's called a complication in aliases. Okay, one of the things to note about aliases is that you cannot use aliases in your filters. In other words, in your where clause, in your end clause, or in your or clause. Okay. In fact, the MySQL manual states that very clearly. If you look up aliases in the MySQL manual, you're going to see that in a certain part of that documentation, it mentions that you cannot use aliases like this, okay, the cost price, in your conditions, in your filters, which is in this case, we have a filter, which is the where clause. So I don't have any choice but to put v price here. However, the problem is, well, I want this. Okay, I want the customer price. Now, of course, we cannot use the alias, so we don't have any choice. But can we put this over here? Well, let's find out. So v price plus v price times 0.1 or 0.10. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen when we run this statement. So I'm going to press Control Return. Okay. And let's scrutinize it a little bit. So indeed, the vehicles are ordered by year, descending. So starting with the 2014s down to the 2011s and so on. We're seeing the V price column. That's right. We're seeing the cost price column. Okay, and that's right. Are these less than? Okay. This cost price column, are all of these less than 100,000? Well, let's find out. So, well, in fact, the most expensive one here, 69,000. Let's see. I don't have any Rolls-Royce, so that's good. So that's correct. In fact, let's sort this. Let's, instead of V year, let's use cost price. Now you might say, Wait a minute, Joel. I thought you cannot, or we cannot use the aliases. You can use the alias in other parts of your select statement, just not in filters like the where, the and, the or. So the order by, that's not part of the exception. So you can use the alias down here. So by cost price descending. So let's find out. Okay, so are these less than 100,000? Indeed, this Ford Mustang Shelby GT 500 convertible. That is less than 100,000. It's 87,664, and that goes down to 69,822, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so um, there you go. So I'm using this is just an example, basically showing you how aliases can be used so you can label your fields or your columns, making it convenient in your application or in your website, wherever you're going to use the select statement, so you can refer to that column using its name. You can also use operators like this. Okay, you can use your alias in the order by, just not in the where, the and, or the or. Now let's add something else here. In fact, what I'm going to do is, okay, let me shrink this a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the select clause, I'm going to add the now function. Okay, what's the now function? Well, according to the documentation, the now function should get us the current date and time. So let's find out that. All right, so let's see, control return. Okay, so here we have the first column. So instead of year being the first column, now we have the first column bearing the name, the date and time when I ran this statement. Okay, so since I ran it June 28th at 2200 hours, well, actually close to 2300 hours, close to 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern time or New York time. Yep, and that's what I'm seeing here. So I can also name that. So select now as cur dt, like current date and time. Okay, so I can call it current date and time, but it's pretty long, so I'm just gonna call it cur dt and control return. Okay, so yep, we're seeing the date and time here. Let's try the same in a Mac, just so to prove to you that it's gonna be the same. All right, I'm just gonna skip that. In fact, oh, actually no, let's use that. Select cur date. Oops. Cur date with one R. So I'm using a different function this time. So I'm just gonna call it c date. Okay, so I'm using a function called cur date, which should, compared to now, well, let's find out. Let's see what will that give us. So I'm in a Mac, so I'm gonna press Command Return. Okay, so as you can see, it's just giving me the date without the time. If I want the time, there is a function called curtime, and I can change the alias to ctime, Command Return. Now, don't mistaken this as, oh, I can only use curtime and curdate in the Mac. No, I can use the now function here if I want to. curdt, like I named it in Windows earlier, and run this, and I'm going to get the same result. I'm going to get the current date and time. So it's not, I'm just showing it to you in both operating systems so you can see that this works across, across different platforms. This has nothing to do with the platform. It is true, however, that when we loaded the data from a file, that there were certain differences, but otherwise, majority of things in SQL will be fine, will run fine across different operating systems. Okay, so there you go. So we've covered functions, okay? Or at least we have a few examples. We covered aliases and we covered operators in this video.